If you walk into a reconstructed Viking longhouse in midwinter, something feels wrong in the best possible way. There is no roaring fire, no smoke stinging your eyes, no pile of firewood stacked against the wall. And yet the space is warm. Not modern warm, but steady, livable, bone-deep warm. For people who survived centuries of brutal Nordic winters with limited fuel, this wasn't an accident or luck. It was deliberate design, built around heat capture, storage, and conservation rather than constant burning. Today, when fuel costs rise and energy systems fail, this Viking approach deserves serious attention. Why Vikings focused on holding heat instead of making more of it? The Vikings lived in landscapes where trees were scarce, winters were long, and hauling firewood was labor-intensive. Burning fuel endlessly was not sustainable, so their homes were designed to trap and recycle every bit of warmth available. Body heat, cooking heat, animal heat, and even solar warmth were all treated as precious resources. Instead of heating air, which escapes quickly, Viking builders focused on heating mass, earth, stone, and timber, materials that release warmth slowly over time. This mindset alone is something modern homes often ignore. Today we heat empty rooms and thin air. The Vikings heated structure itself. How the sun and earth were used as passive heat sources. Most Viking longhouses were oriented deliberately, with entrances and living areas positioned to catch low winter sunlight. Even weak northern sun adds warmth when absorbed by dark soil floors, stone hearths, and thick wooden walls. These materials acted like thermal batteries, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly through the night. The floors were often packed earth mixed with clay, ash, or lime. This wasn't crude construction, it was thermal engineering. Earth holds heat far longer than wood or air. If you want to apply this today, even a simple earthen or stone floor section near a south-facing window can noticeably stabilize indoor temperatures without a single watt of power. Why Viking walls were thick enough to stop heat from escaping? Viking walls were not thin barriers but layered systems. Timber frames were packed with turf, moss, clay, and sometimes animal hair. Turf walls, in particular, were extraordinary insulators. Grass roots trapped air while damp soil prevented wind penetration, creating walls that functioned like natural insulation panels. In practical terms, this means insulation was breathable but dense. Heat stayed inside, moisture moved slowly outward, and rot was minimized. Modern builders can replicate this principle using thick, natural insulation layers, lime plasters, and breathable wall systems rather than sealed, plastic-wrapped structures that lose heat through hidden leaks. How animals played a role in heating Viking homes. One of the least discussed Viking heating strategies was shared warmth. Livestock were often housed in attached or adjacent spaces, separated by thick timber walls. The body heat from cattle, sheep, or goats warmed the structure itself, especially at night. Heat rose through wooden partitions and floors into living areas above. While most people aren't keeping livestock indoors today, the principle still applies. Heat from kitchens, water heaters, or even compost systems can be captured and redirected rather than vented outside. Some modern homesteads run air ducts from compost piles or greenhouse spaces into living quarters, following the same logic Vikings used 1,000 years ago. Why Viking hearths heated stone and not just the room? The Viking hearth was not designed to blast heat outward. It was built low and wide, often surrounded by stone. Fires were burned hot and short, charging the stone with heat rather than feeding flames all night. Once the fire died down, the stone continued releasing warmth for hours. This is directly applicable today through masonry heaters, rocket mass heaters, or even simple stone benches placed near heat sources. The goal is not constant fire, but controlled heat storage. One intense burn can outperform hours of low, inefficient heating. How low ceilings and compact spaces preserved warmth. Viking homes were not tall or sprawling. Ceilings were low, rooms were compact, and unused space was minimized. Warm air stayed where people lived and slept. There was no wasted volume to heat. In modern homes, this translates into zoning. Heating only occupied spaces, lowering ceilings where possible, and reducing vertical air loss can drastically cut energy needs. Even adding heavy curtains, lofted sleeping areas, or enclosed nooks follows this ancient logic. Why ventilation mattered as much as insulation. Despite their sealed warmth, Viking homes were not airtight. Smoke holes and controlled airflow prevented moisture buildup and mold. Warm air was allowed to escape slowly at the highest point while fresh air entered lower down, creating a gentle circulation without heat loss. Modern homes often fail here by either sealing too tightly or venting too aggressively. Passive ventilation systems that move air without stripping warmth mirror. Viking design more closely than most modern HVAC systems. How you can apply Viking heat principles today without rebuilding your house. Add thermal mass near windows using stone, brick, or water containers. Insulate walls with dense, breathable materials instead of thin synthetic layers. Capture waste heat from cooking and redirect it into living spaces. Reduce ceiling height where possible, and focus heating where people actually live. Most importantly, shift the mindset. Heat stored is more valuable than heat produced. Why this ancient system still matters now? The Vikings didn't survive because they burned more fuel. They survived because they wasted none. In an era of energy uncertainty, their approach offers resilience, efficiency, and independence. This isn't nostalgia. It's tested survival engineering. If you value forgotten wisdom that still works, make sure you subscribe to Backyard Wisdom. Share this with someone who cares about self-reliance, and keep these lessons alive. The past still has work to do, and you're part of carrying it forward.